Hey guys, so this is kind of part 2 of the product editing tutorial video that I mentioned in the last one. So I'm going to show you a different way or a different method that I've used, and this is using a satin background. This is the final product, and this was what I started with, this really hideous looking picture. Turned it into this. Um, and I shot this on a satin background. I don't know why I got into satin for some reason for backgrounds. I bought like 2 yards of it online. I think it was like $10. I can't remember. I just, I don't know. I just do stuff like that all the time. So, anyways, I bought this satin background. I already had a couple of um, photo lights, and I ended up buying 2 different color bulbs that you can adjust via Bluetooth. So I set one of them up pink, one of them up blue. I kind of put this whole thing, it was really janky. I put it on a chair, draped like the satin background over it, set up the 2 lights. I think I actually ended up putting this in my little photo sweep that I mentioned in my other video, the like $15 one. Kind of stuff the satin in there, turn that light on, place the patch on there, had the 2 different color lights kind of next to it. Um, yeah, it was really janky, but it worked really well. But obviously, it didn't start off so hot. This picture's pretty rough, but with the magic of Photoshop, I managed to get it here, which turned out pretty good, I think. So yeah, I'll show you how to get this. Basically, all you need for this is a satin background, or really any kind of background. It doesn't have to be satin. Essentially, what the goal of this is to highlight the patch or whatever the product is and just soften that background to feel like it isn't equal with the product that you're trying to showcase. So I'm going to show you how to create that soft background. And that's pretty much the gist of it. So whatever kind of background you want or you think would look good, like that's totally fair game. But I really like satin, especially with light or colored lights. It looks super, super interesting. It's got that really kind of reflective quality. And it just looks super like luxurious, I guess. So, anyways, let's get started. So first things first, I'm gonna crop this picture. It looks terrible. I'm gonna leave it as a square. So original ratio, you can change kind of the ratio of your crop boundaries. So I'll click square. So that way, like I literally can't drag it like out of proportion. It's always going to be square. So I'm just going to try to get this thing centered. And this is probably going to end up looking a little bit different than the one I showed you just because I'm probably not going to be able to recreate it 100%, but that's okay. So I want this to be, I want it to be centered, but I kind of also want it to sit a bit, well, that's probably pretty good. I want it to be optically centered. It's kind of sitting at an angle. It's not like straight on. So I think I'm going to have it shifted like that a little bit. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, that works. So I'm going to zoom in on this. Quick trick, if you want to zoom in or fill your window with whatever you're working with, you can hit Command 0. And that just kind of fills up whatever space you've got. That's kind of a good trick to know. So next what I'm going to do is adjust the levels. It feels super dark. The lettering looks like silver. It's supposed to be white. So I'm going to adjust the highlights and see if I can't get that white to look a little bit better. And there's also kind of this shadow in the mid-tone area. It feels a little bit too reflective or too much contrast. So I'm going to try to change the midtones, soften those up a little bit, increase the shadows. That's looking a little bit better. Kind of turn preview off to see where it was, where you started. I'm going to crank the highlights up a little bit more. I'm not too worried about the white around it getting blown out because I'm going to change all that stuff anyways. So mostly I'm just focused on the patch. Just kind of keep playing with those highlights and midtones, shadows. Don't want it to get too... Now that's pretty good. We'll roll with that. Cool. So once you get your levels kind of situated, your colors look pretty accurate to what they look like in real life, then you move on to the background. So what I do, and it's kind of a tedious way to do it, but I really like the control of it. There's other ways you could do this that are much easier, I'm sure. In fact, I know of one, but I'm going to show you how I do it. I just like that there's more control over like how much you can soften certain areas, things like that. So the main tool of choice that we're going to use is the clone tool. And again, S is the shortcut for that. And we're going to work with a bigger size stamp. It's going to be pretty big, maybe in the 400s. You want it to be pretty good size. I'm going to bump the hardness down probably all the way. I don't really want there to be any hard edges. And then the opacity, you're going to bump way, way down to like, I don't know, around 10%, super low. And then you're ready to roll. So, see, the layer's already unlocked, good to go. Clone tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to soften this background. But first, I'm noticing this little like thing in the corner. I really just want to get rid of it. So I'm going to just clone. So my opacity is low, so you might not really notice anything. But for each time you click, it's adding, in my case, 8% opacity onto it. So I'm just going to kind of click. And having a low opacity basically just, it kind of enables you to be able to blend it a little bit better. And you can play around with that. Maybe you want it a little bit higher. It's kind of up to you, but like I just kind of blended that in and it looks pretty natural. You can't tell anything was there. Just kind of getting rid of those edges and just going over it. So yeah, I'm going to zoom out just a smidge. Yeah, that's fine. Now we're going to soften the rest of it. If you see any kind of like super big eyesores like that, you can correct it, but for now we're just going to move on. Everything looks pretty good. So like I've said, the goal is to soften the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work kind of in sections. So first I'm going to work on this upper section, and you basically just clone one part, and then you just barely shift your clone tool, and then you just start coloring it in. Super subtle, and then you just kind of keep doing that. You just click and then like barely bring it down, color it in. You can kind of see it starting to get a little fuzzy looking, and that's exactly what we want. Kind of work in that little section, trying to get it to look. So I might bump the opacity up a smidge. If it feels like you're not getting anywhere, then feel free to play with that. You just don't want to be too high of an opacity because you start losing that whole effect. So yeah, the goal is you're cloning a certain area and you're moving it just enough that it starts to like blend it together and just starts to create this really like fuzzy, soft-edged kind of look to it. So you can see that this now looks very soft. It looks like it had kind of a blur almost added to it, which is another way you could do this. If you wanted to, you could select this patch with a quick select tool or whatever, and then invert it, select the background, and do like the blur tool, which is a filter. Gaussian blur works really good. That'd be a way to do it, but I feel like it's too uniform. Like I want to have a little bit of clarity around where the patch is, right close to it. Maybe it isn't blurry, but you want the background to be a bit more blurry. So it just depends on what you want, really. So I'm just gonna kind of go through. I'm gonna just kind of add a little bit of blur right here. I'm not gonna show you this whole thing because it's gonna take a while. It takes some time, but the effects are definitely worth it. And like I said, you can use a different background besides Satin. It's totally up to you. It just is a kind of a nice. It's a different way to do it. Product picture, and like for me, I like to do a picture like this more for like social media. In fact, that's how this one was used. I sent this to Wilco, and they ended up using it for social media, like ads, and then I did another product photo using the other tutorial that I did, and they ended up putting that one on the website. So I think it's kind of like good to have different pictures for different uses. Kind of have some for your store that are a little bit more clean, and then have some for maybe Instagram or Facebook that are a little bit more like intriguing, or I don't know, maybe you're a little more eye-catching than just a product on like a blank background or colored background. Um, so yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of my take on it. But yeah, you basically just you keep doing this. You just go around and around, and you're just kind of filling in. You're cloning one spot, barely moving it, going over like a whole area, and then going back over it, recloning, shifting it over and over and over, and you just slowly start to see that background being blurred. And then there is one other way you could do this too, I suppose. There is a blur tool on here. I just don't find that it works all that great, to be honest with you. It doesn't have enough of a shift to it for me. Like, I really want to blur these, like, super, like, really soften it. But you might try that too, see if that kind of does the trick for you. So yeah, there's lots of different ways to kind of get a similar effect. It's just kind of all depends on what you want. But for me, I really like this way. I just kind of like having control over like where you want it to blur, all that kind of stuff. And for this like photo that I started with, it already kind of had these interesting colors because I used the colored bulbs. So it's I don't know, it kind of further enhances it, I think, kind of having those kind of weird colors that start blending together and kind of create this almost like ethereal looking background, which you could also kind of enhance too. I mean, if you wanted to go over it with a brush tool and do some kind of multiply or like soft light, yeah, you could really manipulate those colors and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's kind of where I would start. I would just really blur that background, and gosh, I might even like this one better than. I must have started with a different photo. I lied. This is not the one I started with, but I know it was a similar quality in terms of the coloring and stuff, but in the end, this is kind of where I landed on this one. I think I added some kind of reddish color with like a brush on this, and I think I added a little blue on this side and kind of enhanced that. Um, But yeah, that's pretty much what how it goes on this. It's super nifty. You can use it for like whatever kind of product. Generally, I feel like it probably would work better for smaller things, but it's just kind of another interesting way or interesting method to use for product photography and editing. And yeah, I find it works really well, especially like working with Wilco and being able to also hand them over some like high quality, nice product photos, so they didn't have to. And these were all like I was gonna do this anyways, so it was kind of just a little bonus that they really appreciated, and I think it went a long ways. So if you're working with a client or something like that on custom, whatever, something custom like this, I think it's kind of a cool extra to be able to like show your chops, like how to do some cool photo editing. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of this. Hopefully that made sense. Hopefully that kind of gives you a little insight into another method of photo editing. Definitely let me know if you have any questions. Whatever. Yeah. All right. I will see you later.